The Heavenly Demon. Can't Live a Normal Life. By Sanchin. Chapter 319. Prisoners of War. Part 4. Count Muniz had no choice but to comply with Roman Dimitri's extreme demand. To his dismay, the Imperial had abandoned him to face Roman alone. With his life on the line, he roared at his soldiers to bring all the prisoners at once. "All of the prisoners are here," said Baron Brighton with a frightened face. He brought the prisoners now that Baron McKitten had died. It wasn't a surprise he looked anxious, since the prisoners he brought were in a terrible state compared to the first group of prisoners McKitten had brought. The atmosphere turned cold. The soldiers of Dimitri, who saw the prisoners utterly worn out from hunger and torture, couldn't suppress their anger. After all, they used to be companions on the deadly battlefield. They breathed their furious rage and clenched their lips as they watched behind Roman's back. They were prepared to pull out their swords and charge at the enemies at his command. Lucas stepped forward. "The prisoners you brought still don't match our list. There must be more." "Is that so?" said Roman. The atmosphere grew even colder. The soldiers of Dimitri refused to hide their murderous intent, realizing that the enemy was still lying. However, Baron Brighton hurriedly waved his hands in denial. "That's not true. This is all the prisoners we have. I don't know under what standard you wrote the list, but the ones who aren't here must have died during the war. We didn't kill a single man. And as you are aware, most prisoners were already heavily injured before we arrested them. So some who are missing had died from their injuries after the battle," said the Baron. Baron Brighton also knew it was a lie that would be exposed if the prisoners spoke the truth. They were there when their companions were tortured to death. But the Baron had to say whatever excuse was in his mind to escape the crisis. His words were partially true, since many soldiers had died from their injuries after the battle. Whatever the reason, the Baron knew he couldn't tell Roman that some of his soldiers were tortured to death. Roman observed the soldiers. They were in a terrible state. The prisoners who had struggled through the worst held complex looks, grateful that their leader came to their rescue. Though happy and relieved, they couldn't hide their sorrows, remembering their companions' deaths. Words weren't enough to express their grief. As Roman closely observed the soldiers' bodies, he stopped at one of the soldiers who appeared to be tortured most recently. Then, he turned to Baron Brighton. "To my eyes, it seems like they were severely tortured. In other words, the prisoners that aren't here must have died being tortured," he said. The Baron was at a loss for words. He had no excuse to give. As the Baron tried to think of an excuse, rolling his eyes, Roman approached the prisoner. "Carol, tell me exactly what happened to you." The prisoners, including Carol, couldn't believe their ears when the soldiers of Kronos told them they would be released. "Roman Dimitri crossed the border to save you. You can rejoice all you want, since you'll return to Dimitri now." They felt their hearts drop in disbelief. They couldn't accept their reality even as they got into the carriage to be escorted. "I can't believe it, Lord Roman really came to rescue us after receiving that short message." They couldn't grasp how Dimitri managed to decipher Carol's message, which wasn't even 3 seconds long. He couldn't even send a complete sentence with the weak signal. The prisoners had given up, losing all hope. Carol had risked his life for the last chance, but believing he had failed, the prisoners thought they would face their deaths in the shabby prison cells of Kronos. They believed their future to be bleak, thinking they would all face a tragic death forced to rigorous labor in the quarries. However, Dimitri came to their rescue. The prisoners were deeply moved that their country didn't abandon them. "Thank you. Thank you so much." Sob. The prisoners wept as they sat inside the carriage. The proud soldiers who refused to cry back when they were healthy began to weep like young children. They couldn't stop their tears from dropping. The prisoners were genuinely grateful. Instead of ignoring Carol's message, Roman Dimitri took the chance to find whoever was left behind. After finding proof of the lost soldiers, he boldly risked his life and invaded Kronos to rescue them. The prisoners knew it wasn't an easy decision to make. A leader of a country had to be careful in making such a daring decision tied to various political interests. In particular, Roman had to risk waging war against Kronos once again for this matter. Nonetheless, he chose to risk everything for the sake of just hundreds of soldiers left behind. The prisoners knew that it wasn't easy to risk the dukedom's safety and its people's safety to save some soldiers whose lives were yet to be confirmed. Most soldiers were left behind to face their helpless deaths, abandoned by their countries. However, Roman was different. He willingly crossed the border, prepared to wage war against the empire for his people. He openly provoked the empire and pointed his sword. His firm determination to rescue his men had brought them safely back into Dimitri's protection. Not even war could stop him. "Carol, tell me exactly what happened to you," said Roman. Carol's eyes trembled as he looked straight into Roman's eyes. His eyes welled up in tears. Not only did Roman come to rescue him, but he also called him by his name and asked what had happened to him. To his understanding, he had never privately talked with Roman before. In other words, it meant Roman had studied all of the prisoners' names before coming here. Carol covered his face as tears dripped down his face. "He is no doubt my lord." Carol, who refused to let a single tear fall from his eyes amidst the tortures, couldn't hold back, deeply moved by Roman's words. "We were tortured, harassed. They treated us like animals. They forced us to labor at the quarries day and night and brutally whipped us if we tried to rest even for a second, Lord Roman. I still can't forget the day one of our companions got smashed by a rock. His desperate cry, asking for help, still lingers in my mind. But the devils of Kronos just watched him die. They belittled him and spat on his face as he faced a tragic death. So, I risked my life and contacted Dimitri with the magic telegram, hoping you would come rescue us from this pit of despair," he said. Carol's voice trembled as he explained. He couldn't control his emotions, reminded of all the pain he had gone through. He cried out his lungs as tears filled his throat. "They pulled out my nails from my hands and feet and sliced my skin. But do you know what hurt me the most? Kronos' treacherous lies. We never doubted Dimitri. We knew you would never abandon us, but Kronos intentionally hid the truth and told us you signed a truce agreement neglecting us." Carol went on and on. He listed everything that had occurred without a specific order. He explained everything as things crossed his mind, like a child telling on his father. To Carol, Roman was like a generous father. And once he finished, his tears had gone all dry. He cried so much that he had lost his voice. But Roman quietly and patiently listened until the end. Not even the soldiers of Kronos could dare to interfere, intimidated by Roman's presence. And when Carol finally finished, Roman asked him a question. "So, who did this to you?" Carol turned to one person. It was none other than Jason. Jason was startled. He hurriedly tried to give an excuse to escape his death, but it only took a split second to leave him crying in pain. "Shing. Ack." Roman instantly slashed the knight's waving hands, trying to deny his accusation. Then, he turned around to flee, but his body rolled over the ground as blood spilled out from his Achilles' heels. Thud. His body smashed hard against the ground as he tripped over. He couldn't protect his body without his hands, and with his heels severed, he was nothing but a newborn calf. He constantly smashed his face against the ground whenever he tried to get up. His body shivered in pain and terror. The knight never expected him to face such a humiliating and tragic ending back when he tortured Carol. Roman slowly approached the knight. Baron Brighton desperately asked as he took a step back. Please. This is enough. We brought you all the prisoners as requested." Yank. Roman grabbed Jason by his hair and smashed it hard on the ground repeatedly. Tears and snot dripped from Jason's face as his forehead got drenched in blood. "This trash dared to lay his fingers on my men. So, I will do the same to him. No. I'm going to do worse." There was no room for compromise. Roman pulled out a dagger from his waist. That was the beginning of the dreadful scene. Jason was still breathing, but Roman slowly began to carve his flesh. The knight desperately moved his body, begging for mercy, but Roman smashed his face and held him tight. It was impossible to break free. Slowly and carefully, Roman inflicted the worst imaginable pain on the knight. Using deadly techniques like the muscle-splitting bone crusher was a waste of energy against petty flies like Jason. Roman intended to make the knight pay the cost of torturing his men. He continued torturing Jason as blood gushed out, making his mind and body collapse simultaneously. The soldiers on the walls gasped in fear. They silently watched as Jason's painful cry echoed and blood filled the ground. But they couldn't watch for long. The soldiers turned away, unable to watch the gory sight. However, none of the Dmitri soldiers turned away. They calmly watched as their leader cruelly murdered the knight. Not even the slightest fear reflected in their eyes because they knew Roman's atrocity would never harm them. So, they quietly watched Roman avenge Carol. And at last, Jason's body dropped down, losing the last remaining bit of life. Roman quietly got up and tossed his blood-drenched hair back. "Count Muniz, connect the imperial cord at once." Roman smiled at the count, gazing up at the walls with his blood-stained mouth. Count Muniz prepared the magic telegram. After being reported about the situation, Marquis Memphis spoke into the telegram. "Roman Dmitri, not only did you invade our borders without notice but also crossed the line by murdering people of the Empire in our territory. If you stop now, I will let you go and take full responsibility for failing to manage my men." Roman had clearly crossed the line. Marquis Memphis wouldn't have been this enraged if he had only held Baron McKitten responsible for hiding the prisoners of war. But the way Roman engaged the Empire made the Marquis furious. Not only did he invade the Empire's borders, but he also painfully killed the Baron and Jason before everyone. Baron McKitten's swollen, bruised cheeks and Jason's badly carved flesh were an apparent provocation against the Empire's pride. The Marquis was almost on his limits. Roman was testing his patience. Roman calmly answered at the Marquis's heated voice. "Whether I stop here or not isn't up to you to decide. I don't care who you've decided to blame for this incident. I'm not here to listen to your excuses. So, instead, I will give you a chance to prove how sincere you are about our agreement. I intend to kill all of your soldiers here in the defense outpost in return for torturing my men. If you accept your fault and desire to keep our agreement even after all that, I will end it here by burning down this place," he said. "Why do you need to go this far? You have your prisoners back and also killed those responsible. What more do you need?" Roman grinned. He couldn't stop laughing at the Marquis's anger. "What other choice do I have? I need to set a precedent now so that you won't think about making up a stupid excuse again next time you decide to get on my nerves," said Roman. "You bast." Tap. Roman hung up. Then, he looked up the walls. "Take out the enemies. Leave none alive," he yelled. The soldiers of Dmitri instantly charged forward at Roman's command. His body smashed hard against the ground as he tripped over. He couldn't protect his body without his hands, and with his heels severed, he was nothing but a newborn calf. He constantly smashed his face against the ground whenever he tried to get up. His body shivered in pain and terror. The knight never expected him to face such a humiliating and tragic ending back when he tortured Carol. Roman slowly approached the knight. Baron Brighton desperately asked as he took a step back. Please. This is enough. We brought you all the prisoners as requested." Yank. Chapter 320. Prisoners of War. Part 5. Baron Brighton's eyes widened in shock. He didn't expect Roman to order his men to slaughter everyone. The Baron hurriedly cried out as he backed away. "Attack him, ugh!" Slash. Blood gushed out his throat. A flash of light sliced his throat before he could finish his words. The Baron dropped to his knees, holding onto his neck and pouring blood. He tried to end his words as he panted ragged breaths with his blood-clogged mouth, but the last thing he saw before passing away was Chris running past him. "Baron!" "Eek!" "Charge!" The Knights of Brighton rushed forward, manifesting their aura. They refused to flee as they charged against the Dmitri soldiers led by Chris. Crowhar. Rumble. A frightening sight unfolded. Chris was the first to engage in combat after killing Baron Brighton. In the blink of an eye, he was surrounded by the enemy's erupting aura, rushing to devour him alive. The wave of aura crashed in on him. However, Chris continued to dash forward non-stop and instantly slashed the aura wave, slicing the enemy's heads. Ack! Arg! It was only a matter of time before he wreaked havoc. Dozens of knights instantly dropped dead on the ground at Chris's attack. And Kevin immediately followed as he dashed straight to the enemies. Enemy knights and soldiers cried in terror. They desperately swung their swords to stop him, but Kevin's uncanny movements were impossible to follow. The enemy's attacks couldn't slow him down. Swish! Crowhair! Kevin turned his head to dodge the attack. Then, he immediately dove his body forward to pierce his blade through the enemy's throat. And after blocking the attacks coming from both sides at perfect timing, he slashed the knights' heads. Then, he leaned his head backward. The Knights of Brighton viciously swung their swords at Kevin, but the moment their eyes matched Kevin's, fear engulfed their hearts. They belatedly realized they were fighting a losing battle. They were nothing but prey before the predators. As the knights hesitated to attack, devoured by fear, Kevin stabbed through their hearts. It was an attack impossible to dodge. The ghost of Dmitri kept his distance so the enemies couldn't reach him and instantly rushed forward to take them down with a single strike. The Flash and Ghost of Dmitri lived up to their names. Dmitri quickly seized the momentum as usual, with the two knights spearheading the attack. However, one unusual person stood out. It was Ares. The new recruit headed straight to the walls at Roman's command. Count Muniz had to keep his composure and refrained from giving the order to attack as he watched Roman brutally torture Jason. He was undoubtedly furious, but his fear outweighed his rage. He hoped Roman would at least spare him after his revenge. Roman Dmitri simply needs a target to lash out his anger. He'll quietly leave once he gets his revenge on Baron McKitten and Jason, who tortured his soldiers. Not even Roman Dmitri would want to face Kronos twice in a war. So, let's be patient and bear with him for now. Count Muniz was recently appointed as the head commander of the Eastern Front Line, but that didn't mean he had exceptional patriotism. The Count accepted the position only because he believed there wouldn't be any war during his term right after the war against Dmitri. He thought it would be a perfect opportunity to gain experience as a commander if his powerful father-in-law could pull the strings for him. That was how Count Muniz got exempt from being tied with the aristocrats of the eastern region. A bright future awaited him in the capital. He wanted to avoid an all-out war and peacefully settle the conflict, but Roman's order to attack ruined everything. Damn it. But now he had no other choice. Watching Ares slaughter his men while charging to the walls, he had to make up his mind. All troops! Take Dmitri down! Charge! Swish! Twang! Twang! Arrows were launched. As the arrows filled up the sky, the war mages of Kronos manifested their mana to reinforce the attack. Inferno! Fire cannon! Lightning spear! Whoosh! Rumble! Waves of fire instantly surrounded the area as flames erupted. Soldiers who barely escaped the fire shivered in pain, struck by lightning. And arrows pierced through the soldiers who avoided the magic attacks. The attacks cast above the walls were deadly, but they weren't compelling enough to slow Ares down. Ares swiftly dodged the attacks and blocked the arrows with his blade. When he finally reached the walls, he reached for some daggers on his waist and threw them. Swish! Pow! Pow! The daggers stuck on the walls. The soldiers of Kronos didn't understand what he was trying to do. But when Ares kicked off the ground, they witnessed an unbelievable sight. Dash! Tap tap! Ares used the hilt of the daggers as steps to climb up the walls swiftly. The soldiers couldn't believe their eyes. They couldn't understand how the blades could bear Ares' weight and how the knight could so easily climb up the narrow path to jump up into the sky. It was logically impossible. However, Ares realized the impossible and instantly landed on top of the walls in the middle of enemy territory. Attack him. Kill him at once. Crohair. The soldiers charged at Ares, surrounding him. But that was the beginning of the massacre. Shing. Ugh. Arg. Ares rushed toward the enemy soldiers. He relentlessly slashed the enemies as he sprinted forward. He dodged the magic attacks or used the corpses as shields to neutralize the mage's spells. Ares' presence overwhelmed the battlefield. The knight who used to be called the super rookie of Valhalla was already a veteran full of battle experience even before joining Roman. And that knight had now become stronger, receiving Roman's teaching. Even the smallest amount of knowledge was enough to enhance Ares' powers dramatically. He climbed the walls by combining the new mana manifestation method taught by Roman. Ares was a prodigy, indeed. And born an audacious warrior of Valhalla, he charged at the Knights of Kronos without hesitation and slaughtered them. Slash. Crohair. He sliced off the chains holding the gates. Bam. Rumble. The gate slammed hard over the moat. Ares single-handedly opened the gates of the defense outpost. Ares purposely rushed to the walls alone. Now that he had vowed his allegiance to Roman Dimitri, he had to show others what he was capable of doing. And his intentions played out perfectly as planned. The soldiers of Dimitri were stunned as much as the enemies. They hadn't seen another person capable of doing such a thing other than Roman. Step. Roman quietly walked across the path opened by Ares. The arrows and magic attacks pouring down could do him no harm. He entered the wide-opened gates and stood before the petrified Imperial soldiers. The soldiers pushed each other forward, hesitant to take the initiative to strike Roman. But as soon as one soldier charged along with a large cry, courage spread like wildfire across the soldiers' hearts. They foolishly denied their bitter reality and convinced themselves they might have a chance against one enemy if they could unite their strength. Thwack. Ack. And just like that, the first knight who charged at Roman dropped dead on the ground with his body and sword sliced in half. Roman didn't even need to manifest his aura to tear the knight's ore-coated blade and armor into shreds. However, the knight's death couldn't stop the other soldiers. The wave of Imperial troops rushed toward one person like the dark swallowing the night sky. Swish. Splurt. Roman dodged an attack and swung his sword to slice the enemy's chest. And when the soldier cried in pain, Roman immediately sliced off his arm to teach him what true despair was. Roman relentlessly swung his sword over and over again. Manifesting only a bit of his aura, he crushed the enemies with brute strength. It was carnage. He intentionally refrained from manifesting his aura not as an act of mercy but to make sure the enemies suffered to death. After all, if he had manifested his aura, the enemies would have obliterated in the blink of an eye without feeling any pain. This battle was Roman's act of revenge. The witnesses of this battle would tell the world about the atrocities that took place in this very place, and people would learn to fear Roman and Dimitri. Roman intended to teach the world what would happen to those who dared harm his people and violate promises with Dimitri. This would be the precedent for the world to see. There would be no exception. Not even Kronos would be spared for its violations. This was a warning for the world to see that his firm determination had no room for exceptions, and those who dared provoke Dimitri would pay the price. The Dimitri soldiers arrived at the gates. They also rushed forward to help their leader. Though the outpost didn't have many soldiers with the signed truce agreement, the battle was too lopsided. Cries of death resounded from all directions. Carol's story provoked anger inside the soldiers' hearts. And like Roman Dimitri, they showed no mercy in brutally killing the enemies. They, too, were members of Dimitri indeed. They abandoned their sense of humanity when trouncing the enemies. It's over, we don't stand a chance against Dimitri, said Count Muniz, lost in despair. He knew it was impossible to stop Roman Dimitri, a true monster on the battlefield. He belatedly realized how foolish he was to dare to stand up against a monster who destroyed Selphir and the 300,000 Imperial army. His body shivered recklessly in fear. He hurriedly turned around and fled his command position, realizing his death was drawing closer. I'll die at this rate. He had no better choice. He had to run for his life. That was the only option he had. Ignoring his aide's calling, he headed straight to the gates on his horse. The gates were right before his eyes. He was confident he would make it out alive if he could escape the castle. But suddenly, whoosh! Roa air. Flames spread across the entire walls and burned the gates to ashes. It almost appeared like the fire had its own will as it incinerated the whole space around him. Count Muniz gazed at the walls with a pale face. Then, he heard someone slowly approach him from the back. Step, step. Only then did the Count realize that he couldn't escape Roman's wrath. This was his fate. One man angrily stomped toward the grand conference room in the imperial court. Wham! He burst the door open. Inside the conference room was another man waiting. The man who burst the door open raised his angry voice without greeting. Marquis Memphis, what the hell is going on? How could you keep the truce agreement after what Kronos had suffered? This is complete nonsense. The man yelling was Marquis Croit. Though recently pushed away from the mainstream after losing his competition against Marquis Memphis, he was undoubtedly one of the most influential figures in the empire. He couldn't sit in his hands after hearing how Count Muniz was violently murdered in the defense outpost. The Count was his son-in-law. The Marquis had done his best to support his daughter's love. But that very man had now died. Unable to suppress his anger, he openly expressed frustration at Marquis Memphis's humiliating decision. Since when did you become such a coward? The enemies invaded our lands and killed our men, but how can you just let them go? I refuse to accept this nonsense. What will the world think of Kronos if we don't hold Dmitri accountable for its audacious provocation? The Marquis raised his voice as he poured out his rage. He was prepared to destroy the conference room if Marquis Memphis refused to take an offensive stance against Dmitri. Our enemy is none other than Roman Dmitri. What do you suggest we do then? Said Marquis Memphis. What do you mean? You better think carefully about this, Marquis Croit. Kronos has never succeeded whenever we made a hasty move. Think about when we tried to interfere in Cairo's rebellion using Marquis Benedict, when we ambushed Roman Dmitri after the Valhalla festival, or when we invaded Dmitri and the recent war. We always mobilized more troops than required, yet we were utterly crushed every time. Marquis Memphis remained cool. He leaned his back against his chair and looked up at Marquis Croit. I understand. I'm enraged as much as you are, so much so that I'm on the verge of going mad. However, we've learned a clear lesson from our past mistakes. We have to acknowledge Roman Dmitri and make flawless preparations to destroy him for good, he said. Kronos' history was decorated with countless victories. Not once had the empire kneeled before another power. But this time it was different. Marquis Memphis believed Roman Dmitri had to be an exception for the empire to reign victorious in the end. He straightened his back and glared up at Marquis Croit with fierce eyes. With that being said, let me ask you again. How do you intend to get your revenge on Roman Dmitri? He asked. Chapter 321. Prisoners of War. Part 6. Marquis Croit couldn't deny Marquis Memphis's words. He was right. No matter what scheme Kronos had planned to destroy Dmitri, Roman Dmitri never failed to exceed their expectations and achieve victory by taking bold moves. In particular, his audacious decision to participate in Valhalla's festival, despite knowing both Kronos and Valhalla were after his life, indeed proved his true worth. Kronos and Valhalla's overwhelming power couldn't stop him. Despite knowing that Dmitri couldn't stand against both empires simultaneously, Roman boldly and single-handedly turned the tables with his own strength. And Marquis Croit was also aware. He believed that Kronos would have to be prepared to go all out next time to punish Roman's arrogance. I also know what Roman Dmitri is capable of doing. Contrary to our past enemies, who trembled in fear before Kronos, he refused to back away. But don't forget that we are the mighty empire of Kronos. Our identity comes from authority and power. No one can hinder us or get in our way. Not even Roman Dmitri, he yelled. He also understood Marquis Memphis's words in his head. However, he also believed Kronos couldn't remain the same empire once it stooped down from its hegemony and played by the rules of the conquered. Frankly, I was greatly disappointed when the emperor chose to sign a truce agreement with Dmitri. And I believe most people in this room also shared the same thought. Since when did we leave room for compromise against our enemies? We are Kronos, the mighty empire that forced the kingdoms down on their knees, though we were the ones who first provoked them. No matter how many countries condemned our misdeeds, we never admitted our fault but held pride as the most powerful nation on this continent. Marquis Croit continued. He was disappointed by the empire's recent decisions. He refused to sit on his hands, watching the empire slowly walk down the path marred by defeats. So tell me the truth, Marquis Memphis. Why did His Majesty decide to rest, and what is he planning to do a year from now? If you refuse to share the truth with everyone here, we will have no choice but to take special measures. Marquis Croit was resolute. He raised his voice, staring at Marquis Memphis. The tension between the two escalated. The aristocrats gathered in the conference room kept their silence. However, Marquis Memphis refused to answer, staring back at his counterpart. The conversation could no longer continue. Marquis Croit tried to solve this matter peacefully by sharing his honest thoughts with Marquis Memphis, but his efforts were in vain. His face flushed red in anger as he waited for the latter to reply. But only silence overshadowed the conference room. Is this your answer? All right then. I shall return to my land and gather like-minded people to publicize this matter, said Marquis Croit. He turned around and headed toward the exit with a scowl. He would have publicly rebuked Marquis Memphis if it were a year ago. However, the political environment had changed. Marquis Memphis now represented the emperor's authority. He spoke on behalf of His Majesty during his absence. Thus, Marquis Croit had to back away since his words could be accused of treason, though not directly criticizing the emperor. The emperor's authority came from absolute power. But the recent defeats were steadily causing a crack to his once impregnable power. Slide. The second before the Marquis stepped outside the conference room, he heard someone slowly pull a sword behind him. Sensing something odd, Marquis Croit hurriedly turned around, but it was too late. A deadly blade pierced straight through his stomach. Stab. His eyes widened in shock as he gazed down at the sharp blade. Then, his eyes trembled in fear, finding Marquis Memphis's face stained with madness. Blood poured out from Marquis Croit's mouth. He got on his knees, steadily losing his strength. He looked up at the murderer in disbelief. How could you?" he stuttered. Although House Croit had recently been pushed away from mainstream politics, it was still undoubtedly one of the most influential houses in Kronos. Marquis Croit wasn't a figure that could be this easily eliminated. As the Marquis desperately tried to pull out the blade from his body, Marquis Memphis pressed it harder with a grin. "You're the one who is wrong here. Don't get full of yourself, Marquis Croit. The foundation of the Kronos Empire is His Majesty and none other. Why should I spare someone like you who doubts His Majesty's decisions?" Splurt. Then, he slowly pulled out the sword. As blood gushed out from his body, Marquis Croit lost consciousness as he whimpered to his death. "Castro." "Yes, my lord. I order you on behalf of His Majesty, the great Emperor of Kronos. Gather your troops and kill everyone who is related to House Croit. Eradicate his family members and everyone who had built amicable ties with the Marquis. We will teach these treacherous bastards a lesson. Leave no exception and make sure to kill everyone," Marquis Memphis stated. "Yes, my lord." Castro, the captain of the Imperial Knights and the strongest knight of the Empire, boldly stepped out of the conference room. The atmosphere instantly turned cold. No one in the room expected the leader of House Croit, of all people, to face such a sudden death. And when Marquis Memphis turned to the aristocrats, they hurriedly turned away in fear. He approached them, holding a smile over his blood-stained face. "Croit is a fool. Born and raised an aristocrat of Kronos, his blasphemous talk dared deny the Empire's magnificent history. Engrave my word into your hearts. The mighty empire of Kronos will not allow a single defeat to ruin our history decorated with victories. Not all enemies we've faced were weak. Some managed to threaten us, like Roman Dmitri, but we never failed to force them down onto their knees and bow their heads before Kronos, the Marquis snarled. The aristocrats stepped back, intimidated by the Marquis's presence. They wouldn't dare raise their heads, hearing his fierce voice and blood dripping down his body. If any of you begin to doubt Kronos' victory, I advise you to look back at the continent's history and remind yourself how Kronos subdued those who challenged us. Don't forget why we are called the mightiest on the Salamander continent. Roman Dmitri is nothing compared to our full force. Only wretched fools would believe Roman Dmitri defeated Kronos after defeating a small fraction of our full capability. But those who know the truth won't ever doubt Kronos' victory. This is our fight and will always be. It's up to His Majesty to decide when and how we will destroy our enemies. Nevertheless, Roman Dmitri succeeded in getting on his nerves without a doubt. The countdown had already begun. A year from now, no one would be able to stand in the Emperor's way when he resumed his AR. Trust His Majesty. As history repeats itself, Kronos will forever be victorious until the end of this continent's history. The aristocrats agreed to the Marquis's words. He was right. Kronos had yet to reveal its true power. Until now, it had only required a part of its full force to reign over the world. No wonder no one dared to stand up against the Empire. The Marquis sat himself at the head of the table. Don't ever again doubt the authority of Kronos before me like this fool here. He wiped the blood off his face with an indifferent look. The news of Dmitri's attack on Kronos shocked the world. At first, the people doubted the news when it first spread from Dmitri. I can't believe Dmitri attacked Kronos. I guess this is the end of their truce agreement then. Roman Dmitri is indeed out of the ordinary. Just think about it. He invaded Kronos without hesitation after receiving intel that Kronos was hiding some of his soldiers as prisoners of war. But what shocked me the most was Kronos' response. Even if Roman Dmitri attacked the Empire without any intention to wage war, I highly doubt the Empire will sit in its hands now that it has lost one of its outposts. Roman's recent attack on Kronos grabbed the world's attention. It came to a point where it became impossible to predict the aftermath of the attack. What in the world? Did you hear how Roman Dmitri killed all those involved in torturing the prisoners of war in Kronos? Are you saying Kronos willingly returned the prisoners to Dmitri? The world sure is changing. The Kronos we know normally would have threatened Dmitri instead without a sense of shame, but it seems like it chose to compromise with Roman Dmitri this time. Considering how the Empire paid 500,000 gold, it's not a surprise the Empire would want to avoid another war with Dmitri. I guess that means the truce agreement won't be scrapped. A few days later, another news piece shocked the world again. The news greatly stirred the people when they heard how Dmitri seized Kronos' defense outpost along the border despite the Empire's compromise. That's it. Dmitri really crossed the line this time. It's over. The Second World War is imminent. I'm not sure if this would benefit Dmitri in the end. But at least it would further enhance the solidarity of Dmitri and the people's loyalty to Roman Dmitri. After all, he boldly invaded Kronos and attacked its outpost because the Empire hid and tortured his soldiers. The world braced itself for the Second World War. Everyone believed it was unavoidable. There was no way Kronos would keep the truce agreement after suffering such a loss. A few days had passed. Contrary to the people's expectations, Kronos refrained from taking any action. The world was shocked. The stories about a possible war also reached Edwin Hector's ears. I wonder how Roman Dmitri could make such audacious moves. The Prince of Hector viewed the stories from a different perspective. Unlike others, he put himself in Roman's shoes and wondered if he would have done the same to rescue his soldiers. He concluded it was impossible. Knowing how devastating another war could impact Dmitri, he would have tried to compromise with Kronos to save the prisoners by using the truce agreement as an excuse. It was a rational decision. The best political decision a leader could make was to seek a possible solution to prevent any unnecessary bloodshed. However, Roman Dmitri was different. He boldly invaded the empire and slaughtered all those involved in hiding the prisoners of war. Not only that, but he also burned one of the empire's outposts to ashes. But surprisingly, Kronos didn't retaliate. It appeared like the empire finally acknowledged Roman strength. It had learned from its past battles the consequences it could face for daring to provoke Roman Dmitri. Edwin Hector was shocked. The mighty Kronos, which refused to consider other kingdoms as equals, had not only agreed to a truce with Dmitri but also chose to back down. Roman Dmitri's achievements never failed to disappoint Edwin. But I can't unequivocally say this incident benefits Dmitri. Kronos, the empire that refused to compromise, has been suppressing its anger for a long time, starting from the truce agreement. I shouldn't take this matter lightly. It may appear like the empire is constantly repeating its failures, but I think otherwise. Kronos must have decided to swallow its pride, for now, to look back at its own mistakes and adjust for its ultimate victory in the future. And when Kronos chooses to reveal their grand ambition again, both Dmitri and Kronos will clash against each other until one is eliminated. I'm certain the next war will change the dynamics of the continent. Edwin Hector was certain. Thus, the people praising Dmitri didn't sound all that positive to the prince's ears. The world was swiftly changing. Unlike how there was room for the weak in the past, the kingdoms had to decide whom to support and side with. The future of the kingdoms depended on it. I can't protect Hector on my own as of now. I must get stronger to help Dmitri contain Kronos' wicked ambition. I need to improve myself, whatever the cost. Edwin Hector headed to the training grounds. The time had come for him to immerse himself in his training not as the prince but as the mage of Hector. The king of Frank also received the same intel about Roman Dmitri's recent attack. But the king enjoyed his moment, unlike Edwin, who was worried about the future and Kronos' wrath. The kingdom of Frank will flourish thanks to my wise decision, he praised himself. Standing at the crossroads, King Frank chose Dmitri over Kronos. Though he initially faced a lot of opposition internally, the situation had changed. He couldn't help smiling after hearing the news of Dimitri's crushing victory against the Empire and Roman's recent attack. The existing world order was shifting. Dmitri was now challenging the dual hegemony of Valhalla and Kronos. Dmitri was undoubtedly the new rising superpower. It was no longer perceived as a mere dukedom. The king of Frank believed he had to take quick action to win the heart of Dmitri, the future leader of the continent. What do you suggest we do to win Dmitri's favor? The king asked Count Samir. Count Samir was the king's most trusted vassal. He had called the count to hear the progress of his special order. Dmitri will be hosting a special event soon. A special event? Yes, Your Majesty. As you may be aware, Roman Dmitri is known for being very fond of those around him. According to my intel, Lauren Dmitri, the youngest son of House Dmitri, recently got promoted to the A-rank class in Cairo's Royal Academy. The promotion ceremony will take place 5 days later, and the Duke of Dmitri will likely attend. Is that so? Replied the king. He gazed at the count, intrigued by the story. Rodwell Dmitri was undoubtedly a significant figure of House Dmitri. Gather the royal court at once. We will discuss what we should present to Dmitri together, ordered the king. His eyes passionately burned with great ambition. It wasn't just the king of Frank preparing for the ceremony. With only 5 days left until Cairo Royal Academy's promotion ceremony, Salamander's attention turned to the academy.